Perfect. Amazing. Amazing. You guys are doing really, really good. Let's say number 6 right now. Perfect. You guys are doing an amazing job. You guys are doing really, really fine. Okay. So yes, why don't you guys give yourself a round of applause with number 1? Amazing. Perfect, perfect. And you guys all need to be loved. So yes, give yourself a number 5. Perfect. You guys are beautiful. You should know that. Amazing. Thank you so much for that. You guys are high on energy, and I'm sure the session will be too. So next, introducing our speakers, we have Rudi over here, who's the CEO and Senior Partner for Business Strategy and Leadership. And we have, have another speaker over here, who's Aditya Varela, who's the CEO for Training Vision, TBI for Global Education. So yes, thank you so much.
Hi, yeah. I have a presentation, quick presentation prepared. I don't know if you want to share your screen. I can probably show it, okay? So that, hello?
Yeah, I guess you can share your screen, please.
Okay. Yeah, it's nice to be back for me here at ISEC because actually, what wasn't mentioned is actually I see a lot of young people here, and I'm the one with the gray hairs. But once upon a time, I also was an ISEC member way back in the 80s. So I had my first global experience thanks to ISEC when I was sent as a young man to Canada. So I have very fond memories as a student at ISEC. So when Divya connected with me about this session about innovation, I was very excited to participate because every time ISEC calls me, it reminds me about my old students' day, and I think, yeah, I need to participate. And in those days, it was mainly Europe and probably a bit of Asia, but Asia Pacific was certainly not active enough. But talking about the SDGs, yes, I'm the CEO of a startup group, a company what calls is focused on sustainability. But I think as you talk about SDGs, the agenda is a bit wider, and actually, I'm gonna probably approach it a bit from a more a business perspective, what SDGs means for business. And I understand and maybe I'm wrong, in my days, ISEC was mainly focused around economic students and students in business. So although SDGs are probably for an individual level and driven by company, but as you will enter at moment in time in your business life, business environment, they also affected the business environment. So we have the 17 SDGs. I think by now you probably discussed those, but we also have the climate change actions, we have the Paris scope. So a lot of the global challenges there. So we have basically we're working towards the 2030 agenda, and I must say it's 5 to 12. My generation probably screwed it up. I mean, everything was possible in the 80s and 90s. The result is that now we are facing a world that is looking for I don't say catastrophe, but if we don't take action right now and act on those 17 SDGs, but also on the 151 indicators in there, we might have a global challenge in front of us. Now, what does that? And at the same time, on a business level, I must say business is taking action. I don't know if you're aware about that, but there's an organization called the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and this is an organization that groups the most large multinationals, and they called for the Vision 2000 vision, time to transform. What they are embracing is how can business, and in this case multinational, the Unilever, the Solvay of this world, embrace the SDGs and implement them, and what an effect does that on the supply chain. So from one level you have the governments that are taking action, or some governments, not all governments. We also have going on here in Europe, you have the European Green Deal. I think things in Asia are probably going a bit slower than anticipated, but there's also actions taken, particularly the Singapore government is taking action, but also with the World Business Council Development, companies are encouraged to take action and are committing themselves to in their value chain and supply chain to take action. So that what requires that one. So if we know the world's agenda is very clear, the world agenda we are living on the SDGs. But what does it mean then for companies to align themselves on their business strategy? Where should they make differences? How they should report on that? And so that is now currently going on. I must say it's going slower than anticipated. I mean, at this moment in time, a lot of greenwashing is still going on. So you have some enlightened companies like Unilever and the Solvay of this world, and then you have companies that just report and using as a communication good feel factor, but don't necessarily change their product and services. But relating that to the conference is actually, where are we on this innovation curve now? And I think that is probably talking to the conference you're on, your conference, where are we? And to the case studies, is it about compliance? Is it about risk mitigation? And I would say a lot of companies at this are in risk mitigation. But as you talk about innovation, this is really about innovation. Sustainability SDGs should be a way for companies to help focus on their innovation. So that should be in their DNA. But at this moment in time, the bulk of businesses are somewhere between compliance and beyond compliance. Some are starting to integrate in their strategy, and the most leading companies are innovating and putting in the leadership. They're what I would call putting in their DNA. And that is very much related to your conference about the SDGs. What does it mean for an individual level? At the same time, what does it mean for a business you might start up yourself? But also, if you're looking for employment in the future, where is that organization? Is it compliance, pre-compliance, leads innovation? And I would argue, and I would make the case for you as young people, students in economics and business, that you should look for companies that really are making sure that they integrate their SDGs fully in their business strategy and ask it, demonstrate it. What are you doing about it? So that was a bit of introduction about what we are. The Sustainer Group is a consultancy based on helping companies on strategy implementation, particularly in helping them to innovate and helping them on the leadership side, also on the financial side, helping to integrate SDGs in their framework. Thank you for giving me the time here. So that's a bit of a framework where I'm coming from regarding the SDGs and how it relates to business. And not so much maybe in the public service sector, but really how businesses should act upon the SDGs and integrate that in their overall business strategy and DNA.
Thank you so much, Rudi. That was very, very insightful, I should say. And yes, I kind of enjoyed your session when you said that your generation screwed up, and I hope that we don't screw up again in our generation. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So yes, we can open the plenary for questions. Like if anybody has questions for Rudi over here, please feel free to. I can wait for maybe 10 seconds. So is that a kid right there? Like, oh yes.
I should be silent, right? They used to be very active in asking questions, so don't be afraid because I have gray hairs, right?
Sure. Yeah, we have hands raised. We'll first go with Angela. Yes, since I saw your hands raised first. Yes, Angela.
Sir, actually, you just said about the innovation thing that most of the businesses miss when conducting businesses, and our case competition also has certain criteria for innovation and entrepreneurship. Would you like to clear about how we can include it? Because before starting any business, or before, let's take the example of this case competition only, when we try to solve the case challenge, we will be in a context of only one way, like how can we include innovation and how can we include that sort of idea there?
Well, I would say my formula is quite simple. Sustainability or SDGs equals being purpose driven, being profitable, and being innovating. Call S is 2 equals 2P's plus I. So the mind shift should be that actually, and for a startup, it should be easier. You should start with what kind of product or service should be developed. So they should be sustainable upfront. The challenge lies with the existing companies where they have an existing products and services, And when they put it on the SDGs, or saying where do we fit, say where should we then innovate? What does it mean for the products and services that we have? Do they include too much plastic? How much CO2? So sustainability in that respect should be a key driver for innovation into organizations. So they are combined, they overlap. So I would not separate innovation from sustainability, because for companies it should be a new way to do business. I would even make the case is if they don't do it, they will actually might die. Existing, and that's where the challenge lies. So mid-sized companies that currently are in business that are reluctant to innovate, they might go ahead for the next 1 year, 2 years, but in the next 5 years, they will be asked to report, to demonstrate to their customers and their suppliers how they fit in the new paradigm. So they will be forced to innovate, or if they don't innovate, they will die. I would say that's what the case I would make, because we all around those 2030 agenda and beyond. Yes, it's slow, but once again, I conclude sustainability equals innovation.
Yes, Angela, I hope that clarifies. We'll next go with Nawanil.
Yep. Hi, Rudi. Yeah, that was really insightful. On the lines of sustainability, I just have a small question. Do you think like the crypto mining is like more sustainable than the traditional way we like generate currency?
I think the crypto mining has a problem. I think it is definitely a part of the future. But I think one of the challenges that is coming up with crypto mining is the way they use energy. So I think they have to change their business model as well. And so those cryptocurrencies that will make it might not be Bitcoin. I mean, they're not going to speculate on that one, but might be the ones that also find a more efficient way of producing themselves. So the way they produce right now is not in the most efficient way. So it is a bit of it's about speculation around cryptos, but I would say they have to look at how they mine and how they use the level of energy to keep them alive. So that's where the challenge lies. So, and if you're really sustainable, then you should ask that question to those crypto miners. How do you maintain your system? Okay.
Okay. Like I read somewhere that they are using like renewable sources of energy, like steam energy or like solar energy to like mine.
Yeah, but they are still using a lot of energy. So that's the question with the crypto man. So that's where it is they should become more energy efficient. So those cryptos should demonstrate in the future how they use less energy than they currently are using. Okay, so it's not an efficient way of producing right now. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Rudi. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So I hope that clarifies. Like, if anybody has any doubts, you can always drop in the chat box. We're always there. And thank you so much, Rudi, for that insightful session. It was crisp and short. I thoroughly enjoyed it, I should say, because it was very crisp and short, since the attention span of our youngsters is very low. So thank you so much for that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you have a question over here. So we'll take one final question. So how do we know if our model is sustainable? Also, if you're providing any service that is new in the market.
Say that again. How is?
Yeah. If you can stop your screen sharing, it will be better, please. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Stop. Yeah. So we stop now. Yeah.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you so much. So I'll read it again. So how do we know if our model is sustainable? Also, if you're providing any service that is new in the market.
How do you know the model is sustainable? Well, you need to. That's a very good question, because you need to start looking. There's two things: is your model sustainable, or is your business driving sustainability through? So you need to analyze your products and services, and you have to analyze basically through the materiality about what your stakeholders and your product or service offer. So it's basically a question about what do I offer to the market, how are my products and services designed, what is the impact related to do the SDGs. And so then and then there are also certificates you can get around. There are organizations that certify you to say this is a more sustainable product that is related to SDGs. So you can analyze that one. So that's some homework you need to do as an organization, particularly driven by maybe the board or the CEO saying, okay, what do we offer? For example, I can give an example here. The chemical industry. The chemical industry is probably one of us started to look at sustainability since 2008, because they knew that a major impact on our environment and product and service, even for example the use of plastics. So since then they are looking at their products and they start eliminating products by replacing other products. It takes time, so you not go from A to B in 3 months. Probably for a company, a transformation to a more sustainability driven business can take 3 to 6 years. Actually, the quickest thing will be is when your customer will, or if you're a part of a value chain and your customer says, I don't want your products anymore, then you know immediately. That will be the quickest answer. When somebody says, yes, I like your product, but unfortunately you use materials that are not part of our supply chain anymore, or not anymore to the criteria we want, then you probably know that you are getting out of business. Okay, quickly.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Rudi. Yes, so Pallavi has said thank you, sir. So I hope it has clarified for her. Yes. So next, we'll move on to our next speaker, which is Aditya, who's on the call. Yes, Aditya, how are you? How are you, sir?
Hi, Aftab. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Rudi. That was insightful and crisp, as Aftab mentioned. Learned a lot from there. Hi, everybody. So we met this morning. I shared a little bit on SDG 10. So I'm not going to present anything now, Aftab, but I'm here to see if really if there's any other questions that I could take. Where I come from is with expertise, or with exposure rather, in economic development, in public policy, or in education, workforce development, or in terms of even entrepreneurship development. So any questions in these areas are welcome. Yeah. So over to all of you to happy to help. I don't have exposure to what you're working on. I'm sure you're working on a lot of different cases. So I really don't know. Angela has a question, I guess.
Yeah, Angela, you can go forward.
Actually, I had a question from morning. I could not ask, so I had noted it down. Whenever we talk about SDGs, we are told to come up with the solutions that will help to meet the SDG goals, right? So today morning, when you were talking about the inequality in the wealth, I mean, I just had one kind of curiosity that even if we give two children same amount of money and tell them to do business, both of them will have different outputs and both of them would have different results, right? So I mean, if we provide subsidies to the poor people, if rich communities try to help the poor people and try to uplift their lifestyles, even by doing that, we cannot achieve the full equality at all, because there will be some differences in the outputs, even by giving the equal inputs. So that was my curiosity, if you had to say something on this. And while talking about solutions, or while presenting solutions, be it in our case or in real life, should we make the solution such that will help to fully eradicate the problem or minimize the problem? That was also my question.
Thank you, Angela. So when you look at economic inequality, right, and let's look at the income or wealth gap, and I've mentioned in the morning that this is something that is of historical nature. That's there's a lot of contextual context that has to play around it. There's one is what you inherit, right? Then what is the opportunities in your environment? What is the ecosystem that you're part of? and what is the cost of capital? I mean, how do you access human capital, financial capital, natural capital? What is it available to you? So these are certain questions come to mind when you look at equal opportunities towards, let's say, entrepreneurship. I think you are meaning entrepreneurship, right, towards wealth creation. Maybe I'll ask you like a few questions, and in your questions, if I'm not wrong, you want to understand so how, when governments, or when you give benefits to underprivileged or those affected, right? You're saying that your point was basically that the business outcomes may fail. Even a certain person who's born to a rich community could really lose the business, whereas someone, right? So I think your assumption and what you said is right to some extent, in the sense that it's correct. Your case example is correct. But if you look at what really happens in real life, right, income and wealth
I mean to
inequality.
say, like, I
Yeah.
mean to say that, like, if there is a person, a wealthy man from America or US, we say, and if he's giving donation to my country, Nepal, and they are just making it like helping me to come out of my inequality or maybe poor economic background. But even by the help of their support, it's not necessary that I will have the outputs to the level, or I'll come out of my poverty zone. I mean to say that. I mean, even when the rich
Sure.
countries are giving so many donations and so many funds to the poor economies of this world, they are not able to come in the same position, or they are not able to have that equal balance,
Okay.
equality. I mean to
I,
say that.
I, yeah, I got what you mean. So here's my response, Angela. Like, number one, there's a lot of the issue what you're talking about is prevalent. There's something like fake charity and some other kind of work, or support, so called, is being done at a superficial, as at a cosmetic level, right? Not really at a deep level. I think Rudi also mentioned towards that earlier, where not really integrated into the system, right? So that's definitely prevalent. But I want you to, all of us, to understand that, first of all, wealth or income inequality is not like linear causality. It's non-linear. There's so many different causes around this, right? There's history, there's culture, there's economics, there's business acumen, there's opportunity, there's market forces, there's so much that's going on, right? So it's really not a simple problem. It's a complex problem. It's a systemic problem. It's systematic, right? This issue, and that's why to solve for it requires an equal amount of systems thinking, and at times there could be certain simple solutions which can directly or indirectly help it, right? So I hope, so when you're going about solving such kind of problems which are complex and systemic, try to understand, look at the cause effect, kind of do some Socratic thinking, right? Really, like, ask the five whys, right? So what if you use your solution, right? Really question your solution a few times. Probably sometimes, especially in this impact world, right? Not all solutions are, it's not possible to migrate all solutions. Like, something has worked in India, we cannot really copy paste that to Indonesia because, hey, it worked here, right? Or something that has worked in Europe, we can't copy paste that, because, so some of these situations are more complex than that. So it's important to understand what are the factors, and as a young person or as a project that you're trying to develop, right? How can you leverage, again, how can you influence policy? Unless you're yourself a bureaucrat or a politician, how can you influence policy? How can you spark social change, right? Or how to leverage technology, or how do you mobilize funding or development finance? So think about those levers, which are some of the things that you could do. And to conclude my point, I would say that wealth or income inequality, there are many ways to do it. Don't try to solve it. Nobody can solve it completely. Even if you can move the needle, right, a little bit, that's great.
May I add something to that one? Because I think it's a very interesting question. Because what I'm opposed against is about the notion of philanthropy or donations. So is about, like you said there, is about systems thinking and about the systemic issue that we're dealing with. So in the past, rich companies, and I'm coming from Belgium, so you can say we're coming from the developed world, we kept our conscience by giving money, and then the money went somewhere. Now I think it's not about philanthropy anymore or donations. It's what do you do with the money and how you guys use that money to innovate. So you actually have your destiny in hand. So wherever you are, being you in Nepal or India, you can develop innovative products and services with the money you get to create value. And that's about how you create value. That's the issue. So I think in the past we kept our conscience okay by just giving donations and we didn't know where the money went and something went well. And now it's about, yes, there is money, but use it well, invest in it, innovate, and then you create value for yourself. Okay, and even probably more value than we have in the West. Okay.
Thank you, Rudy. And if I can add to you, Rudy, it can also backfire, right? If you invest, if you provide philanthropy or funding to a particular project, and it's not implemented well, it can have the complete opposite effect. For example, in entrepreneurship, let me say in India, right? Many of the initiatives with good intentions, trying to create young entrepreneurs. I have also seen that there are certain youth who are not educated or not really aware about the risks of entrepreneurship, or the, like somebody has a question, is the knowledge about the markets or the products and services are there or not. And they don't know the legalities and the legal structures, compliances, and they struggle a lot, right? And they're not financially secure themselves, and they often, I've seen such cases. So we have to be really careful on how such kind of impact initiatives are designed. But I think a really funny example is by this Italian philanthropy project, I think in one of the African countries, where they financed tomato farming, and they decided that the land was very fertile, so let's just put tomatoes over there, right? Let's fund tomatoes. And in the night, the hippopotamus, the herd of them, they'd come and eat the whole tomato farm or something like that, right? So it's not like you have to understand a lot and go onto the ground to implement the finance. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about risk. I mean, entrepreneurship is about risk taking. So there are risks involved. So if you can choose the life of a bureaucrat, as you said, but if you are developing a business and be innovative, you have to assess your risk, and then you have to make sure that that the education system helps. So that's all part of the way. So yeah, entrepreneurship is mitigating risk and looking for the opportunities where you then create wealth and value. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll say thank you so much for the insights. So we have Pallavi next. Pallavi, you can unmute yourself and ask a question. You have your hands raised.
Hello, sir. Um, After the morning session, I was wondering about the income gap and the wealth gap, and I have a direct question related to my case study. So, my case
Sure.
was global goals, and after understanding the real difference between economic gap and wealth gap, um here's what I want to ask you. Since the youth that we are targeting, who is our target in this particular case, does not have the wealth, we might have income, but we do not have wealth. And as our case says, so I want to know who is our target audience. Like we are creating human assets out of the youth. That is what our case asks us to do. The youth is the one who is supposed to be lured and used as a human asset, but they are the ones who would start at once. They need to be given a platform. So when this case study is done, whom do we take it as our audience? The youth or the ones who would finance them?
So, Pallavi, I think you should look at the audience or your target as your beneficiary, and the one who's standing to benefit here really is the youth, or you. I mean, anybody who is not having, who's a first generation wealth creator, right? I mean, the whole idea in the morning was that uh, people who are not first generation, who have been in from business houses, or they have been from well off backgrounds in developing economies, had been privileged, right? Substantially more than any other sort of communities in those countries. And how do we kind of equalize that access? And often this discrimination happens on religion, race, disability, or many of the other kind of things, right? Caste, whatever, right? So your beneficiaries, in my opinion, could be the youth, could be those who stand to gain the wealth, and your sort of your approach can be those agents, and these agents can be institutions or intermediaries who can, play a role, who are stakeholders in uplifting, in changing that, in bringing awareness in that area, right? For example, we spoke about a startup in the morning which was actually in India. They're giving financial literacy as well as investment literacy, sort of financial investment possibility, optionality in local languages, in 33 Indian languages. So for example, that could be your stakeholder, that could be one way to achieve and benefit your audience, your target group. And you could really target narrow down your target group of beneficiaries through age and the obvious means, but also look at things like, is this person first generation or second generation, third generation business person, or what is their current, or what is the income bracket of their parents, right? Look at that also. What is their income bracket or their wealth, or are they currently, what is their spending power, what is their per capita income, what is their, so look at, there are a lot of such metrics for you to sort of narrow that down. And I hope my answer helps. Yeah.
May I just compliment on that one? I think there is a lot of money available right now on sustainable finance. What you see happening is that sustainable investment in sustainable finance is really taking momentum. So I would say, yes, you target some of the youth, but at the same time, I would also study, if you have a good project, where is the money going to come from? And so there is money available around sustainable financing worldwide that you could, well, here in Europe, definitely European Union is putting funds aside, but also must happening in India and other parts as well. So they study where the investors are and where the money sits for your project. So it is an end story. It's being clear who you target, but at the same time, in your case study, also study who is funding this type of initiative. And there is, I can guarantee you, there is money being freed up for that one on a worldwide basis. So that is part. So then should be definitely included in your case study. I haven't seen your case study, so I don't know, but should be there. Okay. So don't exclude that one. Okay, but also study it carefully so you know where to go and look for investment. Okay, for your project.
Thank you so much for your answers. That was really wonderful. I could get what I was asking. So really thank you for that.
Absolutely right. Thank you so much for the answers. It was insightful. So we have Maz who has raised up his hand. So Maz, you can unmute and go forward.
All right, thank you. Hello, sir. My question to you is how effective is the taxation systems that are pre-existing in the world? Really helpful to decrease the wealth disparity that we have. And in addition to that we see that the world is now moving towards a high taxation rate on multinational corporations that is already passed by G7 and G20. Do you think, as you said, it would help to move the needle of wealth disparity somehow?
Maz, Rudi, I think you can definitely go for this. But I can add, yeah.
Very good question. I think it is actually, as you speak, it's happening. You know what happened on the G7 recently, where they made an agreement that they should now start taxing multinationals. Definitely, the European Union is also going after that one. So I think for the first time, there's a recognition that taxation will play a very important role. We cannot continue with those tax havens. So this is really very non-productive going on. It's early days, but we should be hopeful that at least among the policy making, if you hear background, my little baby running around, policy making going on to make sure multinationals don't avoid taxes, but start paying reasonable taxes. So what's happening with the EU, but also Biden is committing to that one. So I think I see a beginning. Is it enough? No. We should go further because we cannot continue like it has been, whereby some companies just paying zero taxes and creating an enormous value for the shareholders, but not to the stakeholders. But I'm hopeful on what's I'm seeing and what's happening, particularly what came out of the last G7 meeting here in London. Okay.
A follow-up on that, the thing is that we have seen that the the lower tax zones, like particularly in Europe, we can see that Ireland has a tax of only 12.5%, and most of the giants of technology, basically like Facebook, Amazon, Google, Alphabet, they are based in Ireland. So how can you persuade countries like Ireland, which have low taxation base, to join with G7 and G20s that are actually pursuing a rate of 30 to up to 30%?
But
Like, how are we gonna?
Ireland is part of the European Union, so the European Union has committed that for its members it will do so. So Ireland will have to, Ireland, Luxembourg, will have to change the system. So it is probably a slow process, but I think at least there is now an awareness that this is creating a degree of inequality. I think so, and each country in a way has signed on the SDGs as well. So there is, but it has to be then the policy has to still be but in policy making. The Swiss government, every government in a way is committed to do it. So, but you know, I must say sometimes businesses go fast. So where we're lagging behind is in policy making. The policy makers have to become more serious what they're talking about. And so from Ireland, I think Ireland is a very loyal member of the European Union. I think they will adapt. Okay.
I just add to Rudi's, I think just to complement what he said on tax havens and all, yes, a lot of they've been exposed as some revelation. But if you look at, I want to give another perspective to this, which is having worked with local ministers and bureaucrats in India when I was consulting with governments. I want to give a perspective to all of you on this tax and taxation. And it's such a broad question which you've asked, Maz, so it's not easy to answer that. Rudi, I think, did fantastic. So I want to maybe give you a perspective of what goes on inside the mind of a policymaker, right? It's also about attracting investments and attracting businesses to set shop in their countries, but also remain in their countries, right? So from the mind of a policymaker or the government, it's really important for the government to make more jobs. Okay, if anyone can guess what is the effective tax that Amazon Inc., right? The listed Amazon, we all know Amazon. I'm sure it's probably there in Asia as well, in many other countries. What is the tax that they have paid from 2010 to 2000, I think 18 or 19? There was a recent report. Actually, it's a public listed company. You can read their, 401k. So if you look at it, right, if anyone can take a guess, try taking a guess. The corporate tax in US is 35%, but they were taxed around 12% per annum. Some say 6% or 5%, but they were taxed around, I think, 12% from 2010 to 2018, right? And so it's also about the investing activities. It's also about the negotiation the company has with the businesses have with the governments. It's not the same for all companies. They have a certain substantial negotiating power even on tax. We may think that, okay, tax is the same for everybody. No. If a company is investing substantially into a particular thing, and many policies actually have that change, that flexibility to offer incentives so that we generate more employment, be it direct or indirect employment. And that is why many of the countries quite vary in their tax and how it's implemented.
Thank you for answering the questions.
Thank you so much, Maz, for that question. And thank you so much for answering that. We have another question on the chat box by Pallavi, which is, how do we attract investors and advertise a startup prototype? A very generalized question.
I can take. I think so. To attract investors in a startup prototype, advertise a startup prototype. I mean, Pallavi, you'd have to first be, very clear about why do you need investors? Why do you need investment? It's not just about attracting investment for investment's sake. It's like what you will do with it, right? And if you're talking about a startup prototype, and it also depends on what stage that is. It a prototype is definitely beyond an idea. So is it like an idea prototype, or is it really like, so what is the maturity, right? Where are you with your product or service? And what is the validation? And that's really important. I'm sure many of you probably have gone through some kind of business model innovation or value proposition design. But if you know the value proposition, and if you really know what is the sort of market validation, in terms of revenues, in terms of sales, or at least in terms of users. If not in sales, nowadays we're seeing, even if people use your product or service, even if they don't pay, still it is some kind of validation of some value. So you need to prove that, and you need to straight up create a pitch deck. And if it's an impact oriented startup, it's a business for social good, social enterprise by design, then you know you need to be very clear on your impact measurement, right? Metrics of how your startup also creates impact, right? What objectively, right? Qualitatively, quantitatively, you should have those metrics. And you should have certain, like you would make some projections, right? So in terms of, oh, you give me $100,000, and then we make it like you give a return on investment, ROI, in terms of, let's say, 300K in 3 years, or whatever it is, right? So that you're looking at in a business sense. Also look at it from a return on impact, right? Return of impact in terms of, okay, how much, what is the kind of money, and what kind of impact it may give back as well. And if you're able to really articulate both return on investment and return in terms of impact, I think then you'd have a quite attractive uh, a startup project. Rudy would.
Yeah, I mean,
I would
I think
suggest you go for it. Yeah.
Actually, the question is, how I understood. How do you attract a startup as well? That's what I heard. So maybe, sorry if I'm wrong here, but actually, you are the startup. If it's you do not attract a startup, because startup is sitting somewhere with an idea and wants to develop it in a business plan and go for the market, look for money, let it going. So the question is, what idea do you have that you can put into a business case, a business plan that you want to make happen? So for me, is you can attract maybe in scale phase a startup, but the startup is in your hands. You are the startup. That I would say. So I would reverse the question. You don't attract a startup. You start. You're in economics. You have the idea. Make your business case, your business plan, and then it develops. And then that's how you create the value. Okay, that's that I would add to this conversation. Okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much. I
You are
really,
ultimately you sell yourself, right? That's also, yeah.
yeah, I
You have
had
to sell.
enjoyed
You
it.
have to sell yourself. That's indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you. It's your hands. Okay. You know how I think Bill Gates started. Okay, he started, and Bill Gates and some of those entrepreneurs. If you look at even Bezos from Amazon, look at how they started. They had an idea. They went to some hardship. They became very rich. Yeah, they're richest. But Bill Gates also started in the garage with his father. Let's build Bezos. So in 91 or 92, we didn't talk about Amazon.com. Okay. Even Apple, but we didn't talk about. So do think how those companies started, and now we look at it. They were all at one moment in time a startup idea from a young man, okay, or a young woman, okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it was really wonderful the way you said, sell yourself. And that actually, opened my mind a little bit. So thank you so much for that. So yes, Mars Garage is a lucky place for startups. So moving ahead, I have a question that's on my mind to Aditya. So you're part of this. You're the CEO of TVI, right, for global education. So I'm just curious about what you do and how is it inclined to the SDG goals that we're talking about.
Sure, Aftab. Would you like me to flash 3 slides at you? Is that okay?
Yeah, completely fine. The stage is yours.
Okay, so let me just kind of actually I had these slides from the morning. So this is what TVI is. I'm CEO for TVI Global Academy. We've registered in India. Training Vision Institute itself is a 3-decade-old. We're celebrating a Pearl anniversary, as we like to call it, 30-year-old institution from Singapore. And so what we do is we combine higher education and skill development. And we call what we do, we're proud to call ourselves a pracademy, right? We're a practical academy where we have about 100,000, 120,000 alumni so far from our programs. And we've consulted some of the largest companies out of Singapore, and we have about 5 campuses in Singapore. So we also have a few group companies that are there in US, in India, India one, which I lead, of course, and in Hong Kong and in other countries as well. So what we do is we work with some of the interesting skills-based universities who are really also offering this kind of pracademics, right? Practical academics, like I said, and we curate these programs in terms of both UG and PG, and currently we're operating these out of Singapore, Pan Asia Pacific, where we're open to students across Asia. And what we do is, so these are the companies that we work for. Recently, we consulted a large telecom company in Singapore for their work from home, and we do both professional development as well as higher education, right? So we are also able to set up corporate universities within companies. At the same time, we ourselves are sort of so what we do is, like we have programs such as professional diplomas, professional certifications, and all of these are done in a hybrid manner, or if you're in Singapore, they're done in a blended manner, right? So you're sitting in your own house. So our whole vision is to democratize global world-class higher education. Right? So you sit at your home, you study with the US or UK or an Australian university, you get the academic credits, you're also able to sort of, and you're doing it with people from around the world, maybe across Asia, and at a fraction of the cost, at probably 1/5 or 1/4 of the tuition fee that you'd otherwise pay, with any of these universities directly. And better yet, we also provide, the career services to support the students along with our network of choice employers. So in India, what we are doing is, one of the core things we're doing is we are also experts in 21st century workplace competencies. So what we are doing is, we find that in India especially, and this is the impact, this is more like SDG 8, not so SDG 10, but the impact idea is that there are certain core competencies that are missing in India and in Indian higher education. And what we're doing is like emotional intelligence or teamwork or innovation or interview skills. Some of these fundamental things are missing. And we are giving this behavioral and cognitive training in a very experiential way, fully online, to students. And we also provide international placements and CV review. So I think as a goodie, we're also giving the ENCODE assessment for everybody to access. The ENCODE is a smart personality assessment, and it gives you an idea of your career readiness, career fit, and it also gives you sort of your performance level on those core critical skills that we have identified, which are 21st century work skills. And I think stay tuned for that. You'll get an email from Isaac on that. So yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Aftab.
Yeah. And just follow-up question on that. Like, I was just curious, how do you find these academic as such, practical academics? Like, we as students, we all suffer to find these kind of schools or something. So how do you find that?
So, in Singapore, again, like it's a developed country in that sense, right? And they have been doing this since 10 years, where when we say academic, like what actually goes on, right? What actually goes on is that 30% of the curricula is project-based learning. It's applied learning. It's real world problems. It's projects that people work on. And then the students are graded, they're assessed, both formatively and summatively, they're assessed on how they did with that project by the instructors or facilitators as well as their peers, right? So this is, that's what it is. If you look at Indian higher education, I previously operated a few colleges in India. Unfortunately, maybe 5 or 3% is applied learning or project-based learning, So you have this situation where a lot of undergraduates are really smart, they know the knowledge, they have all the books, but when they go to the workplace and they have to do a job, right, get things done, they're completely flabbergasted. There's a stymied. They don't know how to do, where to begin, what to do, right? So that's what we're trying to solve. And in India, and I hope in other countries, but in India, we have this national education policy that after 34 years came about last year, right? So that talks about this. So we were really excited and said, let's start the company out of India now. So that's how we started last year, and that's what we do. Thanks, Aftab.
Sure. That was amazing. And, even I'm excited for the NEP to come, implement over here. It's still not come into effect. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So coming
ray
back,
of hope. Yeah.
So ray of hope. So coming back to Rudi, I just have, a curious thing that's on my mind. So you're the CEO and senior partner business strategy and leadership, right? So how did your journey towards this start, like such as leadership? Like strategy is understandable. Everybody does that as a CEO, but leadership is not something that everybody does, right? So that is what I'm curious about.
That's actually, yeah, that's what this actually the Sustainer Group is also in a way a startup company, startup consulting that started as a business idea for me 2 years ago. Because in a previous life, I've been in consulting, productivity consulting, but I also worked for a long time for the Center for Creative Leadership. I think they also have an office in Singapore and Europe and American based, and that's where I was leading the importance of leadership in implementing strategy. So I have been part of my career. I was in strategy level. I was also in the leadership behavior level, and then by coincidence, 2 years ago, I met an old schoolmate of mine from a university, and he was a CFO, and we started over a beer chatting about. Talking about the last CEO job I did not on my own was I was CEO of a company called Academy and Business Society, which was a membership-based organization that looked both from policy making, business side, and brought together what did it mean the SDGs for business. But a membership-based organization could not implement. So I was a bit frustrated. So how can I implement? But I always felt strategy, and I would actually paraphrase Peter Drucker here. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So you can have the best strategy in the world, but if you don't have the right behaviors going on, the right mind shift, you fail in implementing a strategy. So for me, strategy and leadership, behavior, the mind shift need to be in sync. So that's why I made sure that in the 3 pillars of our company, we have strategy, what are the products and services, the markets you want to cover. That's we can all do that technically, but you need also to create a mind shift. And thirdly, that's why one of my parts is sustainable finance guy. We need the money to help companies. So that for me to make it happen, to make a sustainable business transformation happen, you need both strategy in place, you need the behaviors, the leadership in place, the skills in place, and you need the finance in place. And then it will come together. And so that's why it's actually coming from. It's actually trying to put together 30 years of business experience and in different fields, and then saying, how can I make a difference? How can I make it happen? And what need to happen? Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I just loved it when you said, eat culture for breakfast. Like that was really, really nice. Amazing. Yes.
That's Peter. You should actually. He died a long time, but I had the pleasure when I was a young man to meet Peter Drucker. But Peter Drucker's writings are very important, and he has paraphrased culture, eat, strategy before breakfast, and a lot of businesses go wrong there. Okay, even in business. So, if you don't have the right culture, not the right behaviors, you might have the best strategy on paper. I can guarantee you still will fail. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Yes, and I believe with that we come to the end of our session. And yes, I would really, really like to extend my heartwarming thanks to Aditya as well as Rudi on this call. Like, thank you so much for dedicating your time for this cause, and hope we, achieve our goals as up ahead.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Amazing.
Thank you, Aftab. You guys are doing fantastic. It's such an amazing.
Love to see ISEC alive. This is always close to me. No, it's true. I must say, that is 30 years ago when I was a student. I think this fantastic group. You guys have everything in hand. Okay, keep on going.
Amazing. We will still hold the ISEC spirits uphold. Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
Okay, thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye-bye. So yeah, we'll take a 15-minute break, and then again by 4:30 we'll just continue forward. And you guys can drop off the call and join the main plenary, because the main plenary is where the next and final session for today is going to happen. Perfect. Amazing, guys. Yeah. So let me repeat once again. So I'm gonna be closing this meeting. So you guys can join back the main plenary in which the final session is gonna happen. You guys are gonna have a 15-minute break. And again, we'll be starting in about 15 minutes again, like 2 minutes are already done. You'll have a break for 13 minutes, and you can just go join the main plenary and enjoy the final session. And thank you so much, guys, for joining in. Thank you so much for dedicating your time over here. You're doing a great job.
The same link in the Telegram group, right?
Yeah, the main plenary.
Thank you.
Yes, Celestial. Bye.